All right, so we're going to go ahead and continue on working on the front view. But let's talk about what that front view on this auxiliary plane is going to look like. And remember, we need an auxiliary plane when we are projecting at an inclined angle. So here's our inclined angle. It's projecting off of this face over here. Now, where do all these hidden lines come from? Let's talk about that. If I show you the fusion model here, let me squish this up a little bit, or at least try to. All right, we can see there is a cutout all the way through here, okay? That cutout is a depth of 0.25. We can't see it in this view, but we can see it in the auxiliary view off of this face. Now, this circle here, the smaller circle, goes all the way through, so that's this depth here, so we can project that out. The depth that this circle goes is only 0.35, so you can see this is 0.35, but this overall depth from here to here is going to be, I'm sorry, this depth overall from here to here is 0.35. The depth from here to here is 0.25, and this circle goes all the way through. And you can see that we've got this angle here that represents this area over here. And we can see that the depth in here, that perpendicular depth in here, is going to be 0.35. All right, so let's go ahead and start drawing this up. So let me squish this out of the way. All right, so what we can do is, just to find where all this information is, we know that 2 up is going to be the center mark of our circle. So what we can do is we can offset 2, okay, and then we can offset half of the diameter. Or, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. We can start working on this and just project it back. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work on this area here. So I'm going to offset this 1 inch. Actually, I'm going to do 2 inches. That's too close. Now, I'm going to go home. I'm going to change that back to visible. So I'm going to offset the line, this line here, O for offset, 2 inches. Now, the width of this is going to be 2.52. That's the depth of this object, because the radius is 1.26 and 1.26. So offset at 2.52. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just square this up. Okay. I'm going to create a line here to here. I'm going to offset it 2 inches. O for offset, enter, 2 inches. O, 2, enter. Now, from there, I'm going to draw the circle that has a radius of 1.26. So I'm going to just go C for circle. I'm going to snap to the midpoint. Shift right click, midpoint. And I just noticed how I just hit the end point of that. It's because I already knew that that depth, that diameter was 2.52. So instead of having to type something in, I just snapped to the end point. Now I'm going to type in TR for trim, and I'm going to select all these objects, hit enter, and I'm going to delete this, or trim those. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to leave that for right now so I can use it for construction. I'm going to go ahead and create my other circles. The center of that point with a D for diameter of 0.75, D, enter, and then 0.75, and then another circle, center, D for diameter of 1.26, enter. Okay, now that's where I can start projecting. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and draw a line, and I'm going to go from the center of that perpendicular. Now, I don't want to have to do the math of this, so what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to offset 0.87 of this line, and then I'm going to move these lines mid between 2 points back to that center line. So watch. So I'm going to type in M for move, and I'm going to select these 2 objects. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to hit shift and right click, right mouse click, And I'm going to go mid between 2 points. And I'm going to pick the end point here and the end point here. And then see how it grays that? I'm going to snap it and pick the end point here. Okay, so that allows me to not have to do any math. I use the direct measurements here. So I'm going to extend that, EX for extend, enter. I'm going to pick this line, enter, pick, and pick. All right, now notice that it's trimmed off here, and it's trimmed off here because this line, when it hits this, it hits it to this point. It doesn't go through the object. So TR for trim, enter. I'm going to use the circle as my trimming or my cutting plane, enter. I'm going to pick this line and this line. Okay, now let's go ahead and start building the base of this. So I know this depth is 0.75, and I know that because of this depth being projected here. So I go O for offset, 0.75, enter. Okay, and I know this depth here is 0.35. Offset, 0.35, and enter. Okay, now how do I get these angles in here? So we know that there is a line of the bottom of this is 0.43, so I'm going to use circles. I'm going to draw a circle with 0.43 is the radius, and I'm going to draw a circle that has 0.43 is the radius. Why did I do that? Because I can use the circles to give me distances to trim by. I'm using the circles as cutting planes. So I'm going to type in TR for trim. I'm going to pick these two circles, hit enter, and I'm going to delete this bottom line. All right. Now I'm going to type in TR just to clean this up. I'm going to trim using that as my cutting plane line, hit enter, and I'm going to get rid of these two lines. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these circles, delete those out. Now I need to draw this angle at 120 degrees. Okay, so what you can do is you can rotate, RO for rotate. You can use your rotate button here. You're going to rotate this line, enter, at the base point here. I'm going to keep a copy, so I'm going to click on C, and I'm going to type in 120 degrees. Okay, so just to confirm, I go to annotate. Let me expand that out so you can see my dimensions. I'm going to annotate that and determine and make sure that angle is 120 like I said. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and squish this back down. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Now when I do this, I'm going to go ahead and trim this up. TR for trim, enter, pick, and pick. All right, now I can actually mirror this MI from this point, shift right click, and perpendicular to this point. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Yes, it is. So MI for mirror, this object endpoint, and perpendicular to this line here. I'm going to turn my ortho on. Perpendicular to this line here. See how it snaps out there? That's what I'm looking for. And enter. I'm going to move this from this endpoint to here. Now, just to confirm, that angle is 120 degrees. So that looks good. So I'm going to trim this up. Pick that line, hit enter, and pick that line. Now, what I'm missing is now this circle here. That circle, that hidden circle, is actually, if I rotate this around, whoops, let's go here. That circle is this circle right here. Okay, so that's this circle right here because this is being projected. This picture here, this face here, is this face here. So let me move that out of the way. So now I'm just going to draw, because it's 1.6 in, and basically that's the center of this line. So I can draw from the center, shift perpendicular. And remember what I did with these? I'm going to just offset, well, that's easy enough. That's offset a quarter. Offset 0.25. So we can go, actually I'm going to trim this up. TR, enter, get rid of that. And I can change that because it's going to be put on a hidden layer. I can go offset 0.25, enter, pick, and pick. Now, the reason it put it back on the visible is because remember when I told it to put it to the current layer. So just be careful of that. MA for match. Pick the object you want to use as the type or the style you want. Hit enter. Oops. Pick the style you want. It automatically tells you to now start picking the other objects. I'm going to go ahead and delete that out because I'll need that as a center line. And I'm going to go ahead and delete, well, actually I'm going to undo that. I'm just going to click on this and I'm going to change that to the cutting plane line. Okay. Now here's the cool thing. If I want this as a thickened line, I can actually change that line style using my p-edit command. If I type in p-edit and hit enter, and I pick this line, and I say yes, Y, and enter, I can just hit enter again, and it automatically changes it now to a polyline. The nice thing about that is I can change the width of the polyline as I see fit. Okay, so 0.013. Okay, now I'm going to offset this 0.25. I'm going to offset this line 0.25, and I'm going to extend out EX, and I'm going to pick this line and extend those lines out. And then I'm going to delete that. All right, so I just offset this a quarter just so I could get this line here. Now I can draw a type in PL for polyline, pick this endpoint. Now I could use the snap, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go rotate, RO for rotate, object, enter, pick a base point, and I'm going to copy it, and 90 degrees. And I'm going to do a circle of 0.25 so I can trim it. TR for trim, and enter. And all I did was rotate it so I wouldn't have to use the snap ang, and I'm going to copy that over to this endpoint here. Okay, now I'm going to show you another little trick for the cutting plane line. So I'm going to put this, I'm going to MA for match. Oh, it's still on the cutting plane line. I'm going to make this the current layer. So I'm going to go home, and then on my properties layers, I can just make a current layer, or you can pull it down. Now watch this. I'm going to type in PL for polyline. My start point is here, and my width is going to be 0.1, and my end width is going to be 0. So that gives me a nice arrow. Okay? You can go W for width. The starting width, let's say, is 0.25, and the end width is 0. I like that. And we just made a little triangle. And I'm going to copy it from endpoint to endpoint. Now, in some of the programs, it's easier to do cutting plane lines, but that's just an option in AutoCAD. All right. Now, let's go ahead and project all this over. So, I'm going to switch to my hidden lines because that's what they're going to be over here. And I'm going to draw this hidden line. I know that it's a 1/4 inch over. So offset 0.25. And I'm going to draw my lines. And notice that it's not a quadrant. So I'm going to have to shift perpendicular. I'm just drawing a construction line so I can snap to my quadrants. I drew it from the center and perpendicular to this line and extended it to this line. So I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to change my O-snaps from quadrant to intersection. So I've got intersection, center, and I'm going to use perpendicular because I'll be using perpendicular a lot. L for line, snaps to this intersection, and it's going to snap to, well, let's do it this way before I start drawing lines. Here's the other thing. I said that this circle goes all the way through. Okay, so on this one, I can draw a line that goes all the way through. L for line going all the way through, intersection to perpendicular. Now, I'll go ahead and trim this up so I don't have a lot of lines in there. Trim, I pick this line, enter, and then pick those two lines. All right, and escape. Now, the next thing it says, this bigger circle goes to a depth of 0.35. So I'm going to offset this line 0.35. So I'm going to pick this line and bring it this way. Now, this is where I'm going to draw the line from this intersection here perpendicular to this line. Intersection here to perpendicular to this line. And I'm going to trim by these lines here. And I'm just using my crossing window. Hit enter, and I'm going to get rid of these lines here. All right. Now, I also have to get rid of the centers of them because the circles do go all the way through. So TR, and I'm just going to window this whole thing in. We know that get rid of that line and that line, and we're going to get rid of this one and this one and this one and that one. All right. We know that the outside edge here, this edge here, goes to that depth. So I'm going to draw a line from this to perpendicular to here. From here, perpendicular to here. Okay? And I'm going to trim that up. Get rid of that, that little bit, and that little bit. All right? The reason we're doing that, if we take a look at this, is, go back to this line right here, that edge right there, where that top is, that was being projected over. That's where this comes from. Okay? Now, notice we have this bump out. The reason we have that is if I look from the top view, see how it's arced here? See how you can see that cut in here? That's what we have to cut out here. So all I have to do is take this edge here, this end point here, and make it go perpendicular to here. TR for trim. I'm going to select all these objects, hit enter, and start trimming away. Now, I'm going to grip edit this and snap it to that end point, and I'll draw a line from here to here. Now I'm going to use my MA for match properties, enter. I want everything to look like this, and then I'm going to start picking those lines. Okay? Now, I need to trim up this. So TR, technically both of those lines should have been trimmed up. Whoops, such as that. Okay? All right, now in this picture here and in this picture here, I'm missing center lines. So I'm going to go ahead and do that before I forget it. When I first did this, I did forget it. Oops. So annotate. We'll do center lines from here to here. Center line. Now, on this one, what I want to do is, because I want it to actually extend past it like this one's doing, I'm actually going to draw a construction line, and then I'll delete these two lines away. Center line from here to here. See how it extends past that? That's what I wanted. So I'll delete those lines. I also need to delete that line. I'm going to go ahead and do the center mark on this one. Notice that it doesn't put it in the right rotation. So I'm going to type in RO. My base point is going to be the center. And I'm going to use my ortho, turn that on, because that's going to allow me to pull it to the, and turn those snaps on. Okay, that ortho is not letting me do what I want. So I'm going to rotate. RO from the center, reference from the center to basically this intersection, and I'm going to go like that. All right, So that's where my hidden lines are my center lines are so far. Now, the next thing that we have to do is we have to draw in our auxiliary view for this side. All right. I'm going to go ahead and pause here, and then we'll take a look at the next auxiliary view.